As my younger brother was mentioning, that this is not the typical talk or lecture about the responsibilities of the husband and wife, but it's rather more the psychosocial perspective of marriage. And I'm sharing my experience with you as a psychotherapist for the past, I would say, 27 years. I worked as a therapist at the Hospital for Sick Children, and I have my own practice, which I'll share inshallah the information with you on it. And I said this is more practical, dynamic presentation than one-way communication. So that's why I was hoping that if the sisters have comments or questions, that there is a mechanism whereby they're able to send it. So if we can have a dedicated number for that purpose, or if there's like, I'm not sure, like what is the mechanism here normally communicating with the other world, but if we're able to get them engaged with us, it would be much useful, because they're most of the time more engaged with these activities than the brothers, no offense, because they are more involved with the dynamic of the family, and they're the one who's dealing with these issues. So this is basically highlighting the importance of marriage and presenting the psychosocial perspective of it. And then we'll talk about the mechanism of choosing a partner. Each time I talk about these issues, today in my Jummah I was talking about how we handle disputes between families and couple, and sharing my observation as an imam, as a therapist, and how sometimes it gets really ugly when disputes take place between two sides, and what's the appropriate way to deal with it. Now we'll talk about right responsibilities of wife and husbands. Of course, I'm talking more into psychosocial than religious. Of course, I'm presenting myself as an imam. I'm an imam, a professional also. But at the same time, I'm trying to present things more professionally than traditionally, because most of the time, the traditional way of presenting things is more theoretical or philosophical than practical, and that's what we need to be mindful about. And how hopefully we'll be able to figure out how to maintain healthy relationship within the family members, and how to deal with the conflict, how to deal with conflict, or what's the conflict resolutions according to the teachings of Islam, according to my experience dealing with these issues. So now asking these questions, why do you think you get married? Seriously, I'm not being sarcastic or being, just what's your thoughts? And this is good, this is two-way communication. We want to hear from the young brothers, those who are not married. Why do you think, one day, inshallah, Allah will make it easy for you and you will get married? What's the purpose? What's the hikmah? What's behind it? I know traditionally we get married because we want to get married. But what is it? What's behind it? Wow. Oh yes, there you go, mashallah. Young people are more courage, more brave. Yeah, go ahead.
To complete half of our needs.
Oh, beautiful, mashallah. I love this perspective. See, even this young brother, he understands it fully. To complete half of my need. It's true. But what else? What comes to your mind when marriage is presented to you? When someone's talking about marriage? Like, what about to think of it as ibadah? You know what's ibadah? Ritual. Now, when we come to the masjid, we pray Salat al-Isha. We get rewarded for it. We will be. This is an obligatory, act of us as Muslimin. So by the same token, Allah Azza wa Jal addresses the issue of marriage within, in Surah Al-Rum. فَسُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ حِينَ تُمْسُونَ وَحِينَ تُصْبِحُونَ وَلَهُ الْحَمْدُ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَعَشِيًّا وَحِينَ تُظْهِرُونَ. He speaks about the 5 days salawat, and then talks about our creation from dust and how we will be resurrected. And then speaks about marriage. So the connection between that is, as you serve Allah Azza wa Jal and you come closer to Him by establishing the 5 days salawat, the fara'id, you're also establishing a ibadah, ritual. As the Prophet ﷺ said, when you're intimate with your spouse, you give your word. And the Sahaba were surprised. They said, well, if you do it the wrong way, then it gets in. So this is actually the only ibadah that starts in the dunya and continues to the akhirah, by the way. Your salah will be finished and end by the time you depart from this dunya to the akhirah. The same is to be said about other ibadat. Siyam, no more siyam. Once you leave the dunya, there is no more siyam, no more salah. If no more spending, you get the rewards if you are charitable, what do you call it? Sadaqah jariyah. afterwards. And the same is to be said about marriage. Allah speaks about this in the Quran. Hum wa azwajun fi dhilalin. What does this mean? Them and their spouses leaning on the couches of the Jannah. So the only ibadah that starts in the dunya but continues to the akhirah is marriage. So we need to redefine the perspective of this relationship. The purpose of the creation for this relationship is primarily to serve Allah Azza wa Jalla. And there are different other outcomes to it. As Allah mentioned in the Quran, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ خَلَقَ لَكُمْ أَنفُسَكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. You created us, for the purpose of proper creation, so we can multiply and serve the deen of Allah Azza wa Jalla. But this is what we need to keep in mind, that this is one of the ibadat that we need to be mindful and aware of. We need to redefine it because unfortunately nowadays you hear about people, young people getting married, and then a day or two or even a couple of weeks they had a fight, and then they end up divorcing. As a therapist, I get to deal with Muslims and non-Muslims who come to me for therapy immediately after they get married. And I had a couple who are not Muslims who come to me for therapy to deal with their anger issues as a result of the court order, because the problem they had on the date of their night wedding. So this is how complicated things have become. And we do have this, by the way, within our Muslim community. I'm dealing right now with another case where a couple got married by the holidays, and now they're fighting and they're trying to resolve issues in the court. And this is insane, because we have lost the focus. We do not understand that this is a'idah, that we come to Allah with, and we need to serve Allah with it. So now that has been said, I don't think I need to convince young people who are not married that they need to get married. Do I need to? Who needs to be convinced? We have those who are married, they want to get second and third, right? No one is saying no to marriage. No one would be having second thoughts. Everybody's looking for it. But the challenge here is how to get married, how to look for the right person, and what are the avenues and ways to do it. So before we do that, we need to talk about the requirements to establish this relationship. Because many young people, especially growing up in North America or in Western societies, they might not be fully aware of these requirements and these concepts. And you will see that the reason why I start by presenting the requirements for marriage, because they are related to the process afterwards of selection, and afterwards how to deal with your own issues in marriage. What's important in this relationship or in the process of preparing for this trip, to keep in mind that the guardian presence is important. Why do I highlight on this important condition? And by all the madhab, except for Abu Hanifa, with certain conditions that the presence of the wali is not required, and alternatively it would be the imam who will take a place. But this is in rare cases where the guardian is not present for because he's not alive, or there are some challenging circumstances. But some young people take this as I say, imam, I want to get married. Oh, beautiful. So what are the parents of your parents? Oh, we just decided to do it ourselves. Like our parents back home. Like, don't you have any people here? No. They died in the war. Most of them come to me and say, oh, our parents, they died in the war. No brother, no uncle, nothing. Like, you just happen to come from the sky all the way, living in the, it's like, come on, help me to understand it. And, by the way, there's something called internet, so you can have Zoom, you can have, a Google Meet, a meeting with them. At least they need to be acknowledging or present and aware that, that you're getting married. So I completely reject them. Unfortunately, some imams do it, and Allah forgive them for their own ijtihad, but I personally say it clearly and very upfront, no marriage, as the Prophet ﷺ, indicated that a nikah without wali is batil, nullified, period. This is it. And the second important issue is the mahar, which is, money most of the time nowadays, mahar is not seen as an important issue. It's a gift, to be given to the bride and all the details. It doesn't matter, because the Prophet ﷺ said that, that's fine, I understand that. But in some other cultures, it's very significant, very important, and most of the time, it's the reason why there's a fight afterwards in the relationship. And that's what would be the main cause, for the two, families to, bring their top guns and start fighting and shooting each other. Not metaphorically, not necessarily, physically. Presence of two witnesses. This is not a hush hush. Let's do it under, in the basement. No, you need to make sure that this is done in public, as the Prophet ﷺ indicated. أولم ولو, make walima and make announce it in public. This is not, a secret business to be done, as I said. Some people told me, Imam, can you please help us? I was like, okay, fine. Whatever it is, and then we work on the details. And they said, okay, can you find witnesses for us? I said, come on, guys. This is not a drive-through service. You need to be mature and responsible. This is not like a date. A blind date. You come and find a sister finds a brother, and then let's go to find the cool imam. And this is they will even arrange for us, the witnesses, and done deal. We drive you through, and that's it. Alhamdulillah. It doesn't work this way. So these are requirements. So we'll see why are these requirements important. Now, if you were to ask a young brother or young sister, what's their image for their future spouse? The image of Dora, Barbie, the prince, the princess, all these things that, in Disney movies are unfortunately, ingrained in our young people's mind. Whether they say it clearly or not, but, the psychology of it is there. Emotions, soap operas, because I've come across this a lot, where people are still living in the soap opera, movies that they watch and were influenced with. They think of love and emotions, and this fancy cars, fancy homes, and fancy vacations. These are all not real issues. Allah Azza wa Jal defined to us the terms and conditions of this. We know that the Prophet ﷺ said that women will be married for 4 issues: for her hasab, heritage; for her money, hasab, heritage; and beauty, and walidiniha. Capture and win the woman of the deen. Your hands will be accomplished. You won if you were to capture the woman of the deen. And the same is to be said, by the way, when it comes to the brother. إذا أتاكم من ترضون دينه وخلقه فزوجوه إلا تفعلوا تكن فتنة في الأرض وفساد عظيم. If the person of the deen come to you. So you would see that between the two hadith, speaking about the female and male side, the word, the deen, is mentioned. So what's the deen? Isn't it? This is a very common word between the two hadith, right? So it's a requirement between the brother and the sister, between the boy and the girl, the male and the female. So what's the deen? Any thoughts?
Complete code of life.
The
complete code of life.
The complete code of life. Jazakallah khairan. Today I was talking about it earlier. Many of us, mashallah, understand and listen, and we, read, and we have a lot of knowledge. But when it comes to in difficult situation, are we applying what we believe in? No. That's why I go to the Supreme Court of Family Supreme Court of Brampton and see how many Muslim names you will see on the list. Why? Why we would have we will talk about the deen and we'll listen according to the deen, but when it comes in difficult moments and critical situations, why we're not applying the deen? So the issue of the deen is not necessarily in what a person presents in the physical appearance. And we'll come to talk about this in the 3 levels of personality. So you need to have a person, or both sides, boys and girls, to be a person of deen, the character of Islam, to be muttaqi. And the practical understanding of taqwa is not only by, I said again, dressing in a certain way, or growing certain length, beard, or wearing certain garment, dressing in a certain way for the sisters. It's not even the niqab, even if you're wearing niqab in public, because I've known some, I know that some sisters wear the niqab in public, the veil, just because they want to challenge the public system. That's fine, perfectly healthy. But what's behind the niqab, and what's behind the beard, what's behind the thawb, that's what we need to know. So in the journey of looking for the mate, and this is a huge challenge, especially for singles and bachelors living in Western societies. We need to look into ways. How can we do it? Should we be, dating? Is there something called halal date, Or should we, and the role of istikhara and istishara in the decision-making process? These are important issues that we will come to explore, inshallah, as the process, because as of every Jum'ah at least, wherever I go, a young man will come to me, and our sisters, mainly brothers, not sisters. They will, I want to get married. There's like I'm having difficulties. Is there a system established to help us be getting married? And this is a very legitimate issue, and we'll come to talk about why this challenge is present to us in Western societies. Now, so let's think about it. So, what do you think? Arranged marriage or dating or love marriage is more successful? Which one is successful in your opinion? Arranged, dating. Who says arranged and who says dating? Let's take a vote. Arranged. Let's see. How about love and dating marriage? Oh, come on, don't be shy, guys. Come on. I know it's past you, the train have passed you. No, those brothers don't regret it. Right. Now, I've done a lot of intensive work on this area, and I wrote once a paper about the role of marriage in integrating the personality of teens in our culture as Muslims. And I was surprised to come across a study that is done by non-Muslims in which they found out that arranged marriage, non-Muslim study, is much more stable than dating marriage. By the way, I do have clients who come to me, and they've dated for so many years, and lived for some times, and they even have children without being married yet. And once they decided to get married, they reflect on divorce after a few months. And I say, why? But by the way, this is not inclusive to the non-Muslim population. And I've seen, unfortunately, Muslims who are doing this as well. I said, why? And what I heard from some of the clients, and this is what I come to realize, that during the dating, or courtship, relationship, you're dealing with emotions. You're not dealing with the real person. Because every side is trying to embrace the other side. But when the rubber hit the road, and when we become, when we involve with the other side, and we'll come to see how Umar al-Khattab defined to us how are you able to, know people. When you apply for a job, you go for references. Like, all of us, are professionals. When we go apply for jobs, what's the first thing they will ask us after the interview or before the interview? What are your references? You write them in your resume. For references, please contact me. And these references will be people who have dealt with you. To show the new employer that you are credible, right? So why are we not using the same system when it comes to arranging for this? So we know that there are 3 levels of personality: physical appearance, the knowledge and skills, and then the applied knowledge, just like what the brother was saying, which is the taqwa, right? The deen. The deen is the applied knowledge, the character. Now, what I mean by physical appearance? Now, as I said, most of us had the experience in life dealing with people. And when, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Tabassumuka fi wajhi akhika sadaqa," right? This hadith, smiling in your face of your brother is a sadaqah. Why is it sadaqah? Because when you smile in someone's face, they become comfortable, when they see you. Over the time, they become conditioned to like you. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ is aiming for. Vice versa, when you deal with someone and you have, unpleasant experience, over the time you become conditioned to dislike them. So maybe in your childhood you've gone through certain traumas or certain unpleasant experiences, or pleasant experiences dealing with certain people who have certain way or certain features or certain, they look in certain way. So you keep in your back of your memory, in your unconscious, that people with certain image would be, nice and pleasant and are good to deal with. But the reality is not true. I remember once, I think the Newsweek or one of those Western magazines, they put the cover page for one of the Afghani girls with blue eyes and all the details, and they were showing the world that look at Muslims, they have blue eyes, and then eventually their perspective of blue eyes and certain skin color are certain perspective, and it was not the same. They were trying to tell people that look, she's living in a very harsh, difficult environment and difficult circumstances. So the physical appearance is your first level of characteristic. I see someone, from and this is where comes the concept. You heard of this word, the concept from before, love from the first sight. Who believes in love from the first sight? Good luck for you, brother. It doesn't exist. It's illusion. Why? Because you're building your love in emotions on certain physical appearance. I'll share this quickly, shall I move on to the other one. I remember one of my children, when I was driving her to school, she said, I hate Orange Day. I said, why? Because she said in Orange Day, the teacher showed us what the nuns were doing to the indigenous people. So every time I see, a nun, I remember how cruel they were with the indigenous children. So I hate, nuns. I said, that's not true. Nuns are not the same. They're human beings, and then maybe there were bad, nuns, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody you see is bad. So, we build perceptions, and that's what the Western media try most of the time to do. They create an image of, a terrorist, cruel person who looks like a Muslim, and they associate the two images together. And vice versa. The present, the nice, the civilian are those who are of a certain skin color, or certain, eyes color, or certain cultural background. So, the second level of personality is the knowledge. How much you possess of the knowledge, how much do you know? But what's important is the third level of personality. And that's what Umar al-Khattab, instructed us to look for when we, go for references. He said, the people, if you have traveled with them, if you have done with them, business, dealt with them in dirham and dinar, and if you are a neighbor. Why? Because unlike nowadays, neighbors at all times would know each other, and that's why the Prophet said, وَصَّى بِالْجَارِ حَقَّ ظَنَنْتُ أَنَّهُ سَيُوَرِثُهُ. Jibreel Mazal Yusuni Bijah, Jibreel is to, ask me to take care of the neighbor, until I thought, Allah will be, instructing us to inherit the neighbors as we give it to our kinship. So neighbors were very connected, so they know each other, clearly. And also, traveling at all times is different nowadays. Nowadays we travel from Mecca to Medina in 7 hours with comfortable buses, and we stop on the road and all the details. But at all times, people it takes them days traveling in the desert and riding camels, and so and also the same thing is to be said by dealing with people in business and money. You really will expose people, and that's why we do have sometimes problems in our community. Two lovely brothers, they do together a business, and after that they fight and they go to court. We've heard this a lot in our community. Why? Because this is when you get to expose people's materials, the ma'adin. So this is what we should be looking for in the process of selection. So the selection process would start from the third level of personality, not from the first level of personality. That's why I said love from the first sight doesn't work, because you can see a person, you fall in love with them emotionally, but are they really matched with you in the same level of understanding and the same way they interact with each other? Not necessarily. That's not true. So the selection process would take place in the third level of personality, which is the characteristic, your taqwa. And that's why this process most of the time is done by getting an assistant from your family members. A young brother in most of the cultures would reach out to their mothers and say, Mom, I'm ready, I want to get married. And she would tell him, son, we do have 1, 2, 3, 4 families whom I know, they're good families. And I'll let you see the girls, and then if whatever you like from there, we'll take it to the next level. Or they go visit these families, and in our culture, the coffee, adam al-ahwa, that's very traditional. In our culture, the way that the boy gets to meet the girl for the first time is when the coffee is served. They bring the coffee. And most of the time, the girl would be, very shy, and her hands are shaky, and she spilled the coffee, and all the details. But that's the time when they get to see each other. And then the prerequisite, the requirements, or the matching process is already have done in the past. And seeing the other side is very critical, and that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, "Hal ra'aytaha?" When a young man came to him from Muhajirin, he said to him, Rasulullah, I got engaged to an Ansar woman. He said, did you see her? Because this is going to be a long-term relationship. If you see her and you do not like her, regardless of how good her taqwa and character is, there has to be, ability to sustain your living. So the matching will start, as I said, on the character, and then moves up to the physical appearance, and the process takes place from there. And that's why the process of selection will be done for most of the time for the young people, because they're not skilled, equipped, or have the knowledge to be able to do this. And that's why we know in the Quran, Shu'aib alayhi salam, the proposal for Musa alayhi salam, in the So, Shu'aib, why did he approach Musa alayhi salam? Because he realized that Musa alayhi salam has the traits and the qualifications of a prophet. So he found that he is a man, decent man, so he wants to capture, that man, and he offered to marry his daughter. And the same is to be said with Umar al-Khattab when he proposed, when he offered his daughter to Uthman, and then Umar, and then Abu Bakr, and then the Prophet after that get married to her. So as-Salihin would normally look for their own, daughters, and the same is to be said, for the Salihin looking for their own, their children, their sons. So this is a very healthy process, and the selection process is done more professionally and much more secure than it is in the dating, love dating, process of marriage. And that's why, who knows what's jihad? What is it? Ashir, what does it explain to us, in certain cultures, the process of proposing for a girl would not be done by two family members. Like, the parents would be meeting with the parents, and the two families get together. The whole tribe will be coming to meet with the other side tribe, and they propose. You would see, there are two lines, right? One on the right side and one on the left side. There's a brother who's standing, and he has a line next to him on both sides. And on the other side, you see another line. The one who's talking is from the groom side. He's proposing for the bride side, and there's a spokesman from the bride side who will be responding to that, man. After he proposes, we're coming to marry your daughter, speaking, to this particular girl from your tribe. So the process is not done in a hush-hush secret, in the basement. No. This is done in public. Two tribes will be getting together, and this would mean that this is a serious business, because afterwards, if any problem were to be arising, guess who gets involved to resolve the problem? Not the boy and the girl, not the parents of the two sides, the two tribes. And that's how secure and stable this relationship is. It's not like a shaky business. We're talking about a very serious issue. In certain cultures, as I said, elders are respected and used in this process, in helping in the selection process. As a matter of fact, Allah Azza wa Jalla speaks about this in Surah Al-Furqan. وَهُوَ الَّذِي مَرَجَ الْبَحْرَيْنِ هذا عذب فرات وهذا ملح أجاج وجعل بينهما برزخا وحجرا محجورا وهو الذي خلق من البشر ماء وجعله نسبا وصهرا وكان ربك قديرا. This is a beautiful verse. I love this verse from Surah Al-Furqan. Translation of this is that He's the one who merges two buckets of water, fresh water, salty water. They put together and they create a new entity. This new entity has a new feature completely different from the two sources, but it's got the features of the two sides, but it's completely different. حجرا محجورا, completely sealed. وهو الذي خلق من البشر ماء ومن الماء بشرا. And then after this verse, Allah speaks about how He created from water a human, and then He created نسبا وصهرا. طيب, Arabic speaking people, what's nasab and what's صهر? Tough question, Nasab is your heritage. Like your own, heritage, your parents, your uncle, from your own, side. Sihr is the relationship will be developed after marriage. Your in-laws, the ones we joke a lot about in Muslim societies, but in reality they're part of your heritage. So your kinship and your in-laws. This is what Allah created in this beautiful relationship. And after Allah said, وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. We created you to the nations and strive to get to know each other. The Mufassir said the ta'aruf will be through the marriage. So now here comes the challenge we have. Now, let's say if hypothetically speaking, we have young people who are single and they're living with their families, but we do also have a bigger percentage of those who are not living with their families. They're coming here as students, or they migrated after they graduated from back home. They're coming to start a new life. So there's no parents around. Now let's say for those who have parents, or they have someone to assist them in this process, which has happened a lot most of the time. I said, young people come to me, Sheikh, I want to get married. I don't know what to do. I don't want to go haram. I don't want to date. What should I do? Like now, and the same thing, to be said, like what's the percentage or what's the population of Muslims in Canada all over? 1 million? Yeah, around 1 million, let's say. Like now, what's the number of Muslims in the city that you're living in? Like we have, alhamdulillah, large Muslim population in Mississauga. I've done this workshop in different cities across Canada. And there will be cities where, we have a few families, counted on the hand. But how are we going to get married? The choices are very slim and very narrow. And it becomes extremely difficult because you don't have much choices. Contrast this, for instance, with a country like Egypt, 120 million people. You will not have difficulties to find, someone to get married to, because you have 120 choices, 120 million choices. But here in Canada it becomes so difficult. So here comes the need for creating new systems, and these systems need to be more effective. Like every city I go to, or every time I go, I encourage the masjid, please, for Allah's sake, create a system of matching system within your masjid. You get rewarded for it. Don't think about it as business only. Why do you have everything has to be business generating money? There's young people need to get married. They're asking for the halal. They're trying to avoid the haram, and you make it difficult for them. I know people get to their 30s and their 40s, and they're still unable to get it. Say, I don't want to do haram. I don't want to go, doing a haram dating, process. I want something halal. But who's helping me to do it? Unfortunately, we do not have an adequate system. Now, I personally encourage going for this dating, halal dating or Muslim dating, matching apps, because they're an alternative. But now, there is a catch for doing that. Now, because we said that most of the time in these dating apps or matching apps, what happens? Most of the time, 99% of the cases, the profile picture is outdated. Both for boys and the girls. Most of the time, the profile that you see on this dating or matchmaking applications is done by the help of GPT chat. It's not real. So how? I have people come to me and say, I read his profile, I read her profile. There's a huge matching. We speak to each other. But then when they get together, wait a minute, this is not the same person. So how do we deal with this? Here comes the two important things that we need to work on. Number one is istikhara, and number two is istishara. What's istikhara? The normal salah we're all familiar with, right? But again, now most of the people who do their istikhara, they come to me, Sheikh, Imam, I'm confused, my head is gonna explode. I can't make up my mind. Why you can't make up your mind? Because there's your heart on one side and your mind on the other side. You're debating between your feelings and between your rational, positive thinking. And that's why you're not able to make up your mind. But the essence of the istikhara itself is when you say, Allahumma inni astakhiruka bi'ilmika. I am, Ya Allah, asking you to inform me with your own knowledge. Not the ilm of the people, the ilm of the knowledge of Allah. عالم الغيب والشهادة. What's عالم الغيب والشهادة? The one who knows the unseen. Because right now we're present here. We know what's happening in this masjid. Do we know what's happening in the basement? Do we know what's happening in the kitchen? What's happening in the sister's site? No one knows. We don't know what's happening in Toronto. We don't know what's happening in Gaza right now. We don't know what's happening in India. We don't know what's happening in other parts of the world. And no one on earth or from the creation of Allah except those whom He permitted would know what's going to happen after 1 second. Because this is from the ghaib. But Allah knows it. So that when we say, أستخيرك بعلمك وأستقدرك بقدرتك, empowering myself with your own power, خلاص. Put your trust in Allah. If Allah wants to make this to happen, it will happen, خلاص. Don't say, I made istikhara 10 times, I did it even 50 times, but still I did not get married. Well, that's maybe the answer to istikhara. Most people say, I did istikhara 20 times, I did not have a dream. Well, I rarely dream. Myself, I rarely dream. If I dream, I share this with all my family members. Oh, by the way, I got a dream last night. It's not always that the answer to istikhara will be coming through a dream. You are, putting your, coming out of your own, ability and power and going and put it to Allah Azza wa Jal. And that's your istikhara. If it happens, alhamdulillah. If not, then it's not happening. But there's something also very important, which is istishara consultation. And here comes the importance of a new service that we all need to be, we get to know. In some cultures, by the way, in the Catholic, culture, the population, if a couple wants to get married in the Catholic, community, the priest would not get married until they go for pre-marriage counseling. And there are some studies that have, were done to prove that those who've gone for pre-marriage counseling would have much more stable marriage. And by the way, all the information I present here have references in articles that I have written, scientific articles with references on my webpage. And inshallah, I'll share with you my website, inshallah. It's alimanfamilyservices.ca. So if anybody is interested to know what are these studies I'm talking about, the references for these studies or for this information, it's all available in articles related to practical issues that I have come across and dealt with in our community. So here comes the importance of doing pre-marriage counseling, which helps I have clients who come to me for 5 sessions of pre-marriage counseling because they want to understand that they're in the right direction and also facilitate the route for them to have a much stable and more safe relationship down the road. Now, with that has been said, we need to keep in mind, and this is the sad reality that I have come across in our community. As I said, you see people, or you hear about people getting married today, a few days, a few weeks down the road, plan X and Y are fighting. They're now contemplating on a divorce. Brothers and sisters, the most unlike what we hear about. You heard about honeymoon? The honeymoon, things that, unfortunately, I've seen a lot with, most of the professionals who get married after a long time and spend it, we want to enjoy it, we want to make it memorable, event. We're going to be going for a vacation, honeymoon. Okay, good for you. But keep in mind, the most challenging time of marriage is the first a few months to a few years. Why? This is the most difficult time in the relationship. See, marriage is like a glue. The longer time it takes, the more powerful it becomes. Unlike the glue we normally use, as time goes, it becomes less effective, right? It's quite the opposite with marriage. If you're able to survive and maintain a healthy relationship, then it becomes much more healthy and much more stronger. I'll share with you, inshallah, some of my experiences about this. Why it's difficult for the couple, the first a few months or a few years are difficult for a couple. Any thoughts on this? And that's why, see, if the sisters were able to engage with us, you will see a lot, you will hear a lot of contributions from them. Is it here or there? I think we need to put do not disturb. You know what to do with it? Slide it down, do not disturb. Anyways, so slide it down and do not disturb.
Flight mode is okay? Or?
Do not disturb. Flight, no, you can do flight. After you sign the contract, now you're obligated to live a new lifestyle. You were living a certain life from before marriage, and then after marriage, a new lifestyle will be introduced. And that adjustment process is difficult, but it's also joyful. But if couple are not aware of it in advance, then here comes the problem. That's why we'll see, as I said, couple who are fighting and deciding to nullify their relationship because they don't see a future for it. Well, it's not there is no future for it. It's that you were rushing to enjoy and have the honey things without being aware that this transition is challenging and it requires more patience and more focus on the goal of this marriage than from before. So this is why it's very important to be mindful about why it, especially at the first a few months, in the first stages, that we need to be more compassionate and more patient. Now we'll move to the post-marriage stage. Just make sure that we still have it, because we have people following us online. Okay. Yeah, we're still alive. Alhamdulillah. In one of the workshops I had in BC, the followers online were 1,100 people. So now we go to the post-marriage, and this is beneficial now for both who want to get married and those who are married already. Now let's start with this very challenge or very provoking question. What do you think? Are man and woman equal in Islam? Yes. Who says, how dare you to ask this question in the masjid? I say yes. Man and woman are equal in Islam. And as Allah said to us in the Quran, الْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ. And he says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ أَضِيعَ عَلَى عَامِلٍ مِنكُم مِّن ذَكَرٍ أَوْ أُنثَىٰ. Now, but we need to be careful. We cannot say, equal to each other and that's it and we stop. It's like saying, لا تقربوا الصلاة, do not approach salah. But continue the rest of the verse. وَأَنْتُمْ سُكَارَىٰ, while you're intoxication. So we cannot say man and woman are equal in Islam, period. We have to define what's the equality terms. Man and woman are equal in Islam in their accountability for their diverse responsibilities in the family. What does this mean? It means that we're not equal. Biologically, we're not equal. These are not my words. Again, these are the words of the psychologists and those who have talked about the family dynamic. It's impossible to say man is equal to woman. Allah created women in a certain way and honored them in for what they're created for, and created men another way and honored them for what they're doing for. This equality or inferiority complex does not exist in Islam. In Islam, الجنة تركب الجنة عند قدمها في الجنة. As the Prophet indicated that to the young man who wants to go in jihad, he said to him, do you really want the Jannah? He said yes. He said, your mom is still alive? He said yes. He said, go, stick with her because the Jannah is underneath her feet. And the same is to be said, whoever takes care of 2 daughters and 3 daughters or 2 daughters and 1 daughter, his reward will be al Jannah. And we know that the sisters is our rahim, and they're our gate to al-Jannah. So what more honor than what Islam have given to women? But at the same time, things needs to be put in the right perspective. You cannot expect women to do the same responsibilities of the man. It's unfair for them. In a million years, no man will be able to give a birth to a child. And in my assessment, no man will be able to do a good job in raising a child like a mother. But the process needs to be completed. You need a mother and a father so that the integration process between, in shaping the personality of the child will be done adequately. So we cannot use the Western perspective of equality, which is absolutely, unfit, and say that, man is equal to woman, and we need to deal with this, and the Western perspective. I always say to, the brothers and the sisters, all of us report to managers, right? So, I say to the sisters, when you go to work, would you say to your manager, hey, listen, I don't feel like listening to you today. You're a woman like me and we're equal, and, forget it. I do whatever I want to do. She will be fired the next day. But when it comes to, in work environment, we do respect the responsibilities and the hierarchical structure because we feel that this is the bread and butter, because we need to live to survive. So that by the same token, we need to be mindful that Allah has created a certain structure for the Islam. And again, I have articles written with references to Western, references about what this is representing in my talk. So there is a structure for the family that Allah has created for the family to sustain and maintain its role, to be able to be effective. So this concept of man equal to woman and the Western perspective is not true. Rather, we need to look into the different skills that each side is presenting into the family. The secret of our success, we say always, is our diversity. The secret of success within the family is the diverse skills that each side is presenting to the family. That's why the Prophet said, كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته. الرجل راع في بيته والمرأة راعية في بيتها. The man is a shepherd and the woman is a shepherd, and you're both responsible for your children. So we need to enjoy our differences and be mindful about them, and not to be, how I can say, not to be fooled with these perspectives that are introduced to us from Western societies or from from outside. We have valuable teachings that we need to be mindful about. Now, this is my observation from doing couple therapy within our community in general, even outside the community. There are always three dimensions that there's a challenge, within the family: the gender differences, the personality differences, and intercultural differences. We'll just try to go through them, inshallah, quickly. How much time do we have, by the way, until we finish?
1 minute.
10 minutes?
1 minute.
1 minute? Oh my brother, come on. Can we take a little more? Okay, inshallah. I'll try to scan through quickly, inshallah. Why understanding differences, gender differences is important? Because, it helps us to understand the other side. Really, we do not understand the other side. Like, this is my experience. Men don't understand women, and women do not understand men. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. The way we communicate is completely different. Always, almost 99% of the couple come to me for therapy. I could see this vivid problem. Communication is very difficult between two sides. Men in general, we don't like to talk. We rarely talk, we don't communicate. Why? Because we're rational beings. Quite the opposite for the sisters. The sisters always wanted to vent out. They want to share their feelings. I bet you right now the sisters are now sitting, listening to me tentatively, but they're talking to each other. This is how this is their dynamic. They like to vent out and share their feelings. And this is what comes most of the time as a trouble between the husband and the wife in the family. The brother comes from work very tired, very exhausted, wants to hide in his cave, wants to have the dinner and have his chai, whatever it is, and just sit relaxed, watch the news, or and just reflect and contemplate on what he have done during the day. Quite the opposite for the sister. Once the husband comes home, she wants to talk to him because she wants to vent out the feelings. And here comes a clash. Once someone wants to talk and someone is doesn't want to talk at all. This is it. Doesn't have the passion for even listening for 1 minute, and becomes a problem and a clash between the two sides. Communicating effectively between the two sides is important. You need to understand when and how to communicate with each other. And as I said again, these are differences Allah created them for hikmah in each side. They're not meant to make our life difficult. They're meant to enhance the quality of the usra, the family. That's why each side, most of the time, send conflicting messages. I hear this a lot, and you probably many from Middle Eastern background know this is a very common joke between the mashayikh, the scholars when they talk. And kuntu rajul, what is it? Kuntu rajul talaqni, right? What does it mean? If you're a man, divorce me. This is very it's a common joke. Almost everybody knows it in the Middle East. One of the mashayikh says, the woman comes to her husband and says, if you're a man, divorce me. And then the man is like, well, I'm a man. What do you think? I'm not this, I'm a man. Here you go, you're divorced. And she goes, she starts crying. Why are you crying? You don't love me, you divorced me. Well, what is it? What do you need? By the way, these are not jokes, they are real. Well, I come across them a lot in my practice. He doesn't love me. Why? He divorced me. Well, you asked for the divorce. But when a woman says divorce me, she does not necessarily say divorce me. She's telling you, I am so frustrated that the gauge is red. This is it. I'm about to explode. And the man should be more accommodating. That's why the Prophet ﷺ, told us to be responsible. And that's why at the first place Allah said, "Ar-rijalu qawwamuna 'ala an-nisa." You're giving the qiyamah because you are supposed to be responsible. Because you do not deal with issues emotionally. So there has to be a way in which we're able to understand, what they mean, what they gesture, what the cues are presenting. And that's why communication is very effective. And unfortunately, sometimes this communication, is missing in the dynamic of the family. Because it could be there are some deeper issues that each side is not able to deal with. It could be the differences of personality. It could be the man is so frustrated because the woman is not able to understand what he's talking about. and vice versa. The woman is really frustrated because the man is not paying attention to her. And unless they get together and communicate more effectively and get to understand how they live their life as a family, because after all, this is their responsibility in front of Allah Azza. It's impacting their children. The biggest loser and the biggest victim in these problems we're talking about are not the husband and the wife. It's the children. I do have a lot of the children come to me for counseling, exposing their misery and their pain as a result of what happens between the husband and the wife and the father and the mother. So Google nowadays, by the way, is working on this. You know, when you go to Google Translation, there's like Arabic, Chinese, Urdu, there's one man and woman. You can select, man, woman. What the man says and what the woman means and what the woman says. They're working on it, I guess, Like, now, we also think in a different way. Our patterns of thinking are different. Most of the time, men are more rational and vice versa. Women, not emotional, they're empathical. And there's something that, by the way, men don't understand. It took me many years to be able to understand what's empathy. Not the derivative or the meaning of the word, but practically, what does empathy mean? It's not a built-in for us. It's a built-in for the sisters. And they're needed because this is what they need to do as mothers and as wives and as sisters. Because without empathy, life would be disaster. And they're excellent in doing that. But we don't know it. But I don't get it. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean empathy? We don't understand unless we practice and exercise on it. So the strength of the man comes in his rationality, and the strength of the woman comes from their empathy. They're more emotional, and we're more rational. So, in another word, women are more empathical, and men are more ethical. Or more, that's what Allah will give us the qawwama. You're qawwam because of what Allah will have given to you. Now, the second issue that most of the time happens is this clear problem between the two sides with personality differences. One side is introvert, the other side is extrovert. They have issues with their personalities, narcissism, whatever it is. These differences between the two sides create difficulty between the two sides to be able to click and be able to communicate more effectively. And I always try to highlight or bring it to the attention of the couple that your differences of personality are meant to be, for strengthening your family, not to, destruct the family from being able to live in an effective way. This is again our strength. Our diversity, whether it's in gender issues or personality issues, are meant to strengthen the relationship between the family. If she's an introvert and you're extrovert, you'll be able to help each other and vice versa, and this will make things more effective. Intercultural differences, and this not only applies for people marrying from different cultural background, but also even within the same culture. Your perspective to marriage is what you have seen in your own family. And that's why, again, when we do the matching based on the family, not the individuals. Your mom will be telling you, son, if you want to be happy, get married from that particular family. And that's, when Umar Khattab reached out, he reached for people of taqwa. And the same is said for Shu'aib, alayhi salam. So, merging families so your perspective to marriage is coming from what you have seen in your family when you were a child. And most of the time, your personality is impacted with your own child traumas and your own childhood experiences. And the same is to be said with the other side. And most of the time, we need to dig deep and find out what is it that took place early in your life to be able to understand what you're doing right now. I have people who come to me who are struggling to adjust in their life because they're living the trauma of their childhood and their marriage. And unless you're able to resolve that trauma, then change will not change. It will be the same. What's this, by the way? What do you think? مفهومة؟ طيب شو what's this?
يعني ما بتعرف إلا بعد الشخصية اللي بعد.
No, that's not what I meant. They have a saying in Arabic. Marriage is like a watermelon. Once you open it, you know if it's white or it's red. It's sweet or it's not sweet. But there's a different perspective I want to present from this. What's this? Watermelon, right? طيب. In Arabic, what's it called? بطيخ. What else? حبحب. What else? رقي. جبسة. دلاع. This fruit has at least, I am aware of 10 names for it. Not in English, in Arabic only. And so in Arabic, it has about 10 different things. So, this speaks for how diverse our intercultural experiences are, and that's what we need to be mindful about in the relationship of marriage. Because, we walk with packages. We bring our childhood, our own experiences in life, our own traumas into the relationship. Today I was doing, counseling, for a young woman, and we're not dealing with her own issues. We're dealing with her own family issues, with the dynamic of what happened between her mom and her dad, and the dynamic of the two families, and what's her father childhood like, and what the traumas he went through, and what's the issues that her mom dealt with. That's helping her to understand the dynamic and help her at the same time to understand what is happening to her in her life. So most of the time people come to me, I'm having this problem. And we end up doing this session and this therapy about something completely different from what they have presented. Because these are the symptoms and the core problems are what the layers of the onion, and you have to take the layers until you get to the core. So marriage therapy is not about finding out who's right and who's wrong. And this is what happens to me when couples come to me. Everybody comes prepared in advance and they want to make sure they represent themselves the right way so they can convince me. I said to them, listen, it does not concern me who's right and who's wrong. What concerns me, what is really wrong in the relationship between the two of you. And that's completely different than what happens most of the time when people come to the imam. And this is unfortunately, we have to face it. Not all imams are trained as psychotherapists. They're doing an excellent job as an imams, but maybe they do not know what's the dynamic of marriage and the family dynamic. So most of the time they do not know how to deal with challenges. So we need to be aware of that. When you go to a therapist, you're not going to an imam to prove for them that you're right and the other side is wrong. And then some people come to me, and I say to them this up front, and then after that, after a couple of sessions, they say, I don't like you. I said, why? Because they said, I told you that this is what she has done to me, and I thought you were going to reprimand her. And I said, brother, the problem is not in her. The problem is with you. You're a narcissist. I'm sorry to say it in your face. So it's not my job to know who's right and who's wrong. My job is to help you be able to see what is really wrong between the two of you. And vice versa. There are sisters who are narcissists. They come to me because they expect me to, reprimand and discipline their own husbands. I said, sister, it's not my job. I'm not acting here as a judge. I told them, I'm not a judge, no, I would like to judge people. You come to me with whatever you have, and my job is to help you be able how to deal with your own shortcomings and your own problems. I'm not Shuaib, this is the famous Judge Shuaib in the history of Islam. So I told them, this is not a war, and this is what happened unfortunately in some families. Rather than the relationship to be based on mawadda and rahmah, it becomes the Cold War. The Russian versus the Americans, the NATO versus the communism, and the children become the spies. How the Cold War, each side would send the spies and they would do the things. That's how it becomes in the family. She's with her mom, he's with his dad, and then the war starts. No, this is not a war. This is not even a conflict between the Arab and Israelis. And for Allah's sake. This is exactly what happens sometimes with the families. It's a real fight, real war. It's very toxic that the children becomes terrified. The fights, the physical, the verbal, all the details, it becomes unbearable. Why, for Allah's sake? This relationship is supposed to be based on mawadda and rahmah, not on fight and physical and verbal and emotional abuse. The magic bullet. What is it? Red flowers. Yes. For the sake of time, I'll stop here. I'm trying just being more conscious. I have, tried to make it as, compact as possible. You have two, QR codes. One is for my website, which is, please visit AIFS website. And the other one is giving me 5 stars. And I promise young people that once, inshallah, I get more stars and I have a Lamborghini, I will give them a ride, inshallah. That's if you see me once again in the masjid. Now, as you're taking, registering the website and giving me 5 stars, we'll open the questions. And I'll leave it to you. You want to do it now? You want to do it during the food or the break? Whatever you want to do, it's up to you. But I wanted to also give the chance for the sisters because we were able to interact, but I know that the sisters have a lot of questions. So hopefully there's a mechanism or way that they are able to send their questions to us, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Website and us. On your website or my website?
No, it's a separate.
Separate thing. Okay, sure. But if you want to go ahead, like we did it in one of the cities, they created a barcode and people were able to send their questions to it.
Like this, if you go to this website that they call, they can have their customers out there and they'll shoot.
Yeah, but in a short time, we need to be effective in time, right? Because I know that we can have much. That's why I told you in advance if you want to create the system. So, for practically speaking, we could just create a barcode and all the details. But practically speaking, let's make it short, inshallah. If you have any questions or the sisters have any questions, maybe we can have one of the brothers whose wife is on our side. She can be texting them or sending them to them, the questions. And inshallah, you can inform them about it. We'll give this, inshallah, about 5 to 10 minutes, and then inshallah we'll conclude. I don't want to be taking too much time than necessary, inshallah. So, any comments, any questions, any thoughts? The same is to be said for the sisters. Otherwise, we will inshallah wrap it up. And as I said again, here's my contact to those who wish to contact me later on. Yeah.
Like nowadays, when girls get married, she's very threatened by her mother.
Yes.
Especially Muslim.
Right.
How's the advice for the girls to how does she advise for her?
Important, comment here is saying that most of the time what happens is that when the girl gets married, she's most of the time is uncomfortable dealing with her mother-in-law. Now, here comes the verse I shared with you from before, with everyone from before. وهو الذي مرج البحرين هذا عذب فرات وهذا ملح أجاج وجعل بينهم برزخا وحجرا محجورا. In the Arabic language, by the way, حجرا محجورا means completely sealed, area or chamber. وقال حجرا محجورا. This is also another place in the Quran. So the relationship of marriage is very unique. Though it's stemming from two bigger families, but it's a unique entity by itself. So I'm against the idea that children get married and stay with their families. You need to move on. You need to create your own space in your entity. And at the same time, a new understanding needs to be emerging. This mother-in-law or father-in-law are equal to your own father and mother. And your parents are your Jannah. And they are your now. So rather than looking at hers and mine, let's together see how we're able to create, an understanding of how can we be barrin. And this is what we need to reintroduce to our community. Ya Jama'ah, it is seriously a very important issue. This relationship is about building a new family. It's about paving to Al-Jannah, not distracting our path to Al-Jannah. There are marriages that happen that destroys the kinship relationship. After the brother or the sister get married, the relationship with the extended family becomes disconnected. She's no longer talking to her family or to his family, and vice versa. Why? It's supposed to be strengthening the relationship. شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا, to get to know each other. So we need to change our perspective. And by the way, this is my advice to the young, newlywed couple. What goes in Vegas stays in Vegas. Allah yaftah alayk. There you go. Have you been there? Alhamdulillah. I haven't been there. Once we have, Imam conference, and an Imam was coming from Las Vegas. He was looking at him. Las Vegas? What are you doing? It's like, there's Muslims there. I was like, no, don't get me wrong. No, I work there. I'm an Imam in a masjid. So, what goes in Vegas stays in Vegas. What happens in the family stays in the family. Allah says in the Quran, هُنَّ لِبَاسٌ لَكُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ لِبَاسٌ لَهُنَّ. They are a garment for you and you're a garment for them. But why do we wear clothing? What's the purpose of wearing clothes? Why do we use garments?
Cover your aura.
Number one is covering our aura. Number two, for protection from cold and hot. Mashallah, Canada is a clear example to this. You can't dare to walk outside, with this weather without a heavy jacket. And what else? Look good, exactly, for enhancement. You look for brand names and look for nice, looking, dresses. So Allah Azza is using that metaphor to tell you that this relationship is about protection from haram, covering your own shortcomings, And this is what I encourage young people to talk about. How is X with you? Oh, he's amazing. He's my prince. She's my princess. Khalas. Let whatever happens, now you have a new chapter in your life. I'm against the idea of getting the extended family involved into resolving any disputes that take place between the two sides. Reach out for, if you are not able to resolve the problems between the two of you, and most of the time it's easily to be resolved, then reach out for an expert that has the wisdom and the knowledge to help you be able to resolve your differences. Reach out for an imam that, mashallah, we do have a lot of imams, senior imams, especially those who have experience in life, who will be guiding you in an easy way with, alhamdulillah, with compassion, and help you to resolve the problem and amicably be able to reconcile. Because once it leaks out to the outside, khalas, becomes difficult to control. Why? Because if a girl comes to complain to her mom, oh my gosh, or to complain to, I have children. Like, I'm part of them, they're part of me. If I hear someone abusing them, what's my reaction? Would I be like, Abu Khattab or Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, who beated Aisha when she was misbehaving with the Prophet ﷺ? This has happened at the time of the Sahaba. Nowadays, we become so furious. How dare you? I gave you my daughter. I spent this much on you. I did this for you. This is what you do back to my child or to my daughter, or vice versa. No, let things be dealt with within. Don't get them involved. Show them that you're happy, content. And this is inshallah will be the case. Because once you get them involved, khalas, it becomes out of control. So this is my advice in a nutshell. Let's redefine why we have these relationships. They are our Jannah. The in-laws and the parents. They are our Jannah, and we have to be convinced about it. And if we don't take care of our Jannah, then there is a problem. And yes, of course, problems do happen within the family. So deal with them the same way that Allah asks us to deal with it. فَعَذُوهُنَّ وَهْجُرُهُنَّ فِي الْمَضَاجِعِ وَاضْرِبُوهُنَّ فَإِنْ أَطَعْنَكُمْ فَاتَّبِعُوا عَلَيْهِنَّ سَبِيلَ Mention the Quran. Reach out for help, but in a wise manner that would help you to reconcile. And there will be times when, class, you feel this is it, it's not workable, and maybe there are other ways to deal with it. فَحَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهِ وَحَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهِ. Then you will get the parents involved, and then the community will get involved, and then eventually, if needed, then there's something called the law, which my Jum'ah khutbah was based about it today. I encourage you to visit, to those who are interested, to listen to why I was sharing my pain of how ugly has it become, in our community to deal with this issue, of separation. It becomes very vicious, very ugly fight between two sides. Why? Are we not Muslims? Are we not brothers? Are we not mu'mins? Why do we need to get to that far? There's no need. Right, any other questions or comments? Like maybe, I'm not sure if the sisters are able to communicate with the brothers who are here, husbands and children who are here. If you have any person or comment or question you would like to share, inshallah, we will be more than happy to do it. Otherwise, as I said again, here's my contact, and please, don't forget to give me 5 stars, and I do promise to bring my Lamborghini once I have it, inshallah. Inshallah. جزاكم الله خيرا سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك وحسن السلام وحسن النعمه وحسن الحق وحسن الحق وحسن الصبر جزاكم خير. May Allah inshallah help us to be able to create families that we be قرة عين to ourselves. Allahumma ameen, and to our children. جزاكم الله خيرا. السلام عليكم ورحمه الله وبركاته. We just go put the online. No, I live in the house. Who cares about it?